Good morning everyone, Jordan here from Artisan Electrics. Welcome back, and I am here today once again at this beautiful oak building, and I'm going to be doing the consumer unit today. So most of it is clad now. As you can see, it looks pretty nice. I'll give you a little tour. So the front is all clad. This is all oak cladding, which is really nice, and then they've oiled it to give it a lovely finish. Three sides of it are now clad, so this side's all clad as well. And as you can see here, we've got our lighting cable for an outside light to go there. They've made a nice little oak plate for it, which is great, so it's going to look nice. And I just stripped the armoured cable back so that it's not going to be difficult to terminate that. So here, this is the main project for today. We've got the power cables already terminated. I did that last week. The main power cable is terminated, but I've got a little bit of an issue with the earthing out here. It keeps tripping the RCD back at the house. I'm not quite sure why. I've put an earth electrode in for it because it's a PME system back at the house. But for some reason, when I connected this and turned it on, after like a while, like a few minutes, it trips, and then you turn it back on and it trips again after a few minutes. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. The main supply cable here from the house tested out fine. The insulation resistance readings are fine on it. What I did is I thought maybe it's an interference with this earth electrode that I put in, so I disconnected the earth electrode and just connected the earth of this consumer unit to the PME system of the house, just to see if that made any difference, but it still keeps tripping out. So I think maybe it's a faulty RCD back at the house. It's an S-type RCD, because obviously we need selectivity with the RCBOs in here. It's one that's been in for a while, and there are a few other circuits on that RCD as well, so it could be that there's a fault with another circuit on the RCD there, and maybe it wasn't picking it up, but because I pressed the test button on it to trip it out, maybe that's just caused it to start tripping now. I really don't know. I need to do a bit of investigation, so I'm going to do some installation tests on the other circuits that are going out of that board, just to check that there's nothing funny going on there. I'm going to do some tests on the RCD, do a ramp test on it and a few other tests, just to see if the RCD itself is dodgy or not. And I'm just going to double check everything here as well, make sure there's nothing funny going on here. The customer was a bit worried about the cables when they'd been doing the cladding, that they've been using a nail gun, and worried that they might have hit some cables or something like that, but I don't think they have. I'm going to do an insulation resistance test on this cable anyway, these socket cables and the lighting cables, just to make sure everything's all right with that. These are all the lighting cables, and I've got two data cables as well going in here. So what I'm going to do, I've put them in temporarily in stuffing glands here, compression glands, but I'm going to actually terminate the steel wire armouring right here rather than bringing it up into the consumer unit. That will just give me a bit more space inside here because the cables will be more flexible. I've got a Wago box XL to go in here to do all the connections for the lighting cables, and then go out of those Wago boxes to these Lutron controllers for the various lights. I've got to put a double socket in here as well, because there's got to be a network switch to go in here to take the incoming data connection from the house and split it out across the two data sockets within the building. And also in here has got to go the RA2 Select smart control hub, which will handle signals from the various lighting controllers. So there's quite a lot of stuff to go in here. It's a bit tight. I'm kind of wishing that I'd have supplied a bigger box, but you live and learn. I've just got to make the best of it that I can and just try and do it as neatly as possible. So this is my main job today, is just try and get this all connected and then start putting up light fittings. So I've got a light fitting to go up here, just a little down light, and then I've got the Dyson light which is going to go up there. I think it should have arrived by now. He said it was going to be delivered last week, so I've got to put that up. And then there's an outside light on the other side there to go up as well. One of these little steampunk sort of industrial style downlight things to go up there, so I've got to put that up as well. Also the LED strip lights, I can't actually put those in yet because this is not boarded, so I won't be able to do anything with that, but I can at least terminate these lighting cables and get everything prepared there. So yeah, plenty to be getting on with. Right, so thinking caps on, please let me know in the comments if you can figure out what's going on here. Insulation resistance on the main supply cable from the house to here is absolutely fine. The internal circuits that I've wired up are absolutely fine. Insulation resistance is fine on those. The only thing I have found is that on the SPD here, there is a low insulation resistance between earth and neutral. It's about 0.5 megohm. So my question is that the problem? Is the SPD faulty, or is that normal for an SPD to have that reading? Live to earth on the SPD is off the scale, but neutral to earth is about 0.5 megohm, and it fluctuates quite a bit as well, like down to about 0.37 at some points when I'm testing it. I've got to change the battery on my tester because the battery's getting low, so I'm going to do that and then check it again. But let me know if you think it's the SPD or if you know it's the SPD. Right, so I'm getting there now. I've got just about everything connected, so all these armors are terminated in here now. Then this Vargo box XL is being used as the main junction box with all the armors coming into that for the lighting, and then going out of that I've got these 4-core flexes going into the Lutron RA2 select controllers. And then I've got my main feed coming into there as well. So basically everything, each set of lights is going to be controlled by a different one of these RA2 select controllers. I've got one for the main light, one for each set of LED lights, and one for the outside lights. So it's going to be a really flexible system. I've got a double socket here, which is so that I can plug in the RA2 select Lutron hub, which is going to go here. That'll just sit down here somewhere or tuck up, just sit on the floor here probably, and plug in there. I've also got this network switch which will just fit neatly there, so I've just got to fix that up. So the network switch goes there. These two Cat 5e cables, I've got to put glass heads on the ends of those and then plug them into the switch. I've got another main data feed to come in here from the house, but I've still got to run that cable in. It's about 120 meter run, so that's probably for tomorrow. But we are definitely getting there now, so I'm quite pleased with how it's turned out. The earth leakage problem seems to have disappeared. I don't really know what's happening. I disconnected the SPD because I thought it was that, because I had a low insulation resistance reading neutral to earth on the SPD. But then left the SPD disconnected for a little while just to see it didn't trip. Connected the SPD back in again, still doesn't trip. So I'm not really sure what's going on there, to be honest. It's a little bit strange, but anyway, no biggie really. That's the lighting circuit, which is off at the moment. I'm going to turn that on in a minute. I've just got to make sure that all the ends are safe. That is the circuit for this socket, which is basically sort of a 2-point radial that's going to go to this socket here, and then out on the outside there's going to be a 32 amp commando socket on here as well, just so they can run some outside temporary power for other buildings if needed. So this is the setup. You've got these earthing nuts that I've used here just to connect the armouring of the steelware armoured cables to the earthing, and I've run a separate earth cable from these all into this junction box with a Wago connector in there for all those. I've just got to put a bolt and a nut on there just to connect that properly. I'm just trying to find the right size nut. All these armoured are neatly terminated into the bottom there. That one is the spare one for the incoming data cable, so I've left that one open at the moment. You've got your double socket here, which I've just connected with a coupler to space it out slightly, because the plug for the RA2 Select hub is one of those ones that goes a little bit high. Originally I put the socket up flush against the consumer unit, but then I realised that this plug wouldn't fit in properly, so I had to lower that down slightly. This is the main feed for the lighting. Then you've got the 4 Lutron controllers here, netgear switch, 5-way switch here, and then these are the RCBOs that I've got. So I've got lighting, 2 radials for the sockets, both on 20 amp radials, and this 32 amp radial just for these 2 sockets here. Main switch, surge protection device. I've ferruled up everything, so I'm quite pleased with how that all looks, fairly neat, and there's a bit of space for future expansion if needed, although to be honest this whole box is quite tight, so I don't know if I would actually be able to fit anything else terminated into the bottom of this box anyway, but there's a few spare ways just in case. So I'm going to put some glass heads, RJ45 plugs on the ends of these now, so that I can then plug those into the netgear switch, and that will just liven up the 2 RJ45 sockets within the building there as soon as I've got this in. And then I'm going to mount this netgear switch up, and I'm going to start putting up some lights. Good morning everyone, Jordan here, welcome back. And today I'm back here at this beautiful oak barn, getting finished off slowly but surely. So let me show you what I've been up to. I managed to get some lights put up yesterday, so I'm pleased about that. Quite a nice little industrial style light. But the main thing is I managed to get this finished. So this is sort of the main control box really for everything. So we've got the consumer unit here. I've still got to label that up. I had an issue with it tripping the main RCD back at the main house, but I figured out what it was, and it was a really stupid thing in the end. I was sort of thinking it was something complicated, like some kind of currents feeding back through the earth rod, or a problem with the SPD or something like that. I put a thing out on Instagram. If you hadn't seen it, go and follow me on Instagram and you'll see. But loads of people sent me ideas, so thanks for all of you who did. Most people thought it was probably a faulty SPD, but actually it was nothing to do with that. Basically what it was the neutral tail, the little flexible tail that comes out the bottom of the main switch, goes underneath the main switch and then up to the neutral bar. It was just caught slightly on the metal clip at the bottom of the main switch that clips the dim rail, clips the main switch to the dim rail, and it was just shorting out neutral to earth very slightly, so it was intermittent. That's why it was staying on for a few hours and then tripping. It was just pulled or pressed a little bit too tightly against that, and it was just shorting that out. So it was a really easy fix, but it just took me a while to figure out what it was, which was a bit annoying. So we've got a 32 amp circuit here for this socket and this commando socket, which I'm going to put on the side once this piece of wall is cladded. That double socket then powers these 2 items. So we've got the RA2 Select hub, which is sort of the brain that controls all of these Lutron devices. And then we've got a network switch here as well. It's a 5-way network switch. which basically will take the main data feed that comes into here and split it out to the data sockets and to this device here. These are our Lutron RA2 Select controllers, which control basically, that one's for the ceiling light, one each for the 2 sets of lights, the LED strip lights under the floor, and then the final one is for the 2 outside lights. And then I've used this Wago Box XL to do all the connections for the armoreds, so that I could flex them in quite easily into that Wago box. It is pretty full, but it did the job anyway, and I've used these earthing nuts to earth all the various armoured cables. I've used a separate earth wire for each of those earthing nuts, but my cousin sent me a message on Instagram yesterday saying what they do, which is really cool, I didn't think about it, is they get a brass plate, just like a brass sheet, and they drill the holes in that, and then all they do is tag one of these. They don't need to actually do an earth tag to every single one, they just tag one of them, and then the brass sheet does the connectivity between all of them, which I thought was quite a clever little idea, really. These are the RA2 Select switches to control the lights. So for example, I can show you this one now. That turns that light on, you see. So, and it's got a really nice dimming kind of soft on, soft off function, which I really like. All of these modules are not just switching, but they are dimming as well. So that means we can dim any of the lights that are connected to that if we want to, and it's all easily programmable by the Lutron app, which connects to this Lutron controller. You can do it without the app though, so what I've done for example at the moment, I've not got any internet out here at the moment, so I've not been able to set it up in the app. All I've done is paired this switch temporarily directly to these 4 controllers, so that switch is switching all 4 controllers on and off, and that just enables me to test the lights and make sure everything's working correctly before I start to do all the programming. So today I've got this really cool light to put up. This is a Dyson CU Beam Duo. It's about 1,500 quid's worth of light, and it's an LED up and down light with this amazing heat sink. So it's got one super powerful LED to shine up and one super powerful LED to shine down, and this heat sink is what takes all the heat out. And it just looks like a spaceship basically. You can see the picture there, that's what it looks like, and it will just hang down on some wires from the ceiling. So I've got to unbox this light, and then I'm going to be putting it up there. You can see where the cable hangs down. I've got the scaffold tower built up already. I've got to put a piece of oak across between those 2 beams to mount it on, because it's got like a flat kind of base that the light fitting mounts on. So that's got to go, the oak's got to go on first, mount the base of the light, do the connections. These bits are now, this side is now boarded. So that's good. So my LED strip, I can run that in today on this side. The armoured cable, I think I'm going to need to pull it up above and then put the controller, the actual like transformer for the LEDs, the driver, up on top of the wood boarding so it's not visible from below. But that set can be done at least. This side is not boarded yet, so I can't do that. But the carpenter might be coming out to finish boarding that today, so hopefully I can get that done as well. As I say, I've done that outside light already. I've got one more outside light to put in, which is out here. So he's done these nice little oak dowels now. He's changed it because he didn't like the way it looked with the screws. This is the kind of attention to detail that we're working to on this project. It's like, it has to be perfect, you know. This is the light. This is the light that's going up, so that will just go on there. But the problem I've got is because it's armoured cable, there's no way that I can actually terminate properly the armoured cable into the back of that light fitting. I mean, if you look at this light, we've got like about less than an inch of space to actually do the connections and everything. It's already super tight for any kind of normal cable, but to do the connections, you know, and gland and armoured in, it's just impossible. So because I've earthed it back at the board anyway and I've glanded it properly there, what I'm going to do is just cut the armouring as close to here as I can, bit of tape around it, and then just have the flexible part of the cable going into the back of the fitting, and that should do the trick, and then that fitting can just mount on there. I've stripped these back earlier just to do R1 and R2 testing on all the cables, so that's why they're just like that. I just strip the end, connect the live and earth, or phase and earth conductors together, and then do an R1 and R2 test. I've done that on all the cables and they've all belled out okay. And I did insulation resistance as well, and they're all fine, so the customer's happy because he knows that he's not nailed through any cables now, which is quite a relief, really. These oak boards, they go on just like with the nail gun. I don't know if he's going to push the nails in a little bit further afterwards or something, but they're not very visible anyway, really, so it's not bad. This side is still not clad yet, so he's still got to do this side. I'm not sure when he's going to do that, but I can finish off my work and it doesn't really matter anyway. We've got the earth rod pit in here now. I put the earth rod in earlier and then he just put the pit in for me. So that's all done and dusted. These are nice, these earth rod pits. You can actually drive like a lorry over them, basically. They can take up to 5 tons of weight, and then they've got these 2 bolts in the lid that you can just bolt the lid down with. So I'll bolt that down later. I've got to label everything up in here, and then the final sort of job that I really need to do before it all works properly is I've got a massive run of this Cat 5e armoured data cable to go in. So I've got this drum here. This is the drum of data cable, armoured data cable, which is what I've been using internally as well. I've got to run this from here all the way back to the house, which is about 100 metres, 120 metres, something like that. And then I've got to put an RJ45 plug on the end of it and connect it into the main router at the house, and then do the same at this end so that I can connect it into the switch that I've put in at this end. So it's going to be a big day of work still, I think. So I'm currently buried in this hedge trying to run this steel armoured data cable back to the house. It's about 120 metre run. Now obviously 120 metre trench, well, if you saw this garden you would know it's impossible. So what we're doing is just running it in this ditch. There's basically like a ditch around the edge of the property which is just overgrown with bushes and things, and the customer has basically been running all his outside cables in here. So for example, there's this previous steel armour down here for the main feed for the shed that I'm working on, the oak studio. So we're just running this along with it. It's not ideal, obviously. Normally it would be best to bury cables like at least 40 centimetres, but it's just not reasonably practicable in this situation. So I'm literally crawling through here now. It's hard to see, but basically I'm going straight through there. I've got I'm about halfway, got about another 50 metres to go. I'm just pulling this cable through with me and just tucking it as low to the ground as I can. But yeah, it's a bit of a mess. So I've got my glasses on and I've got my gloves just to protect my hands and my eyes in case any branches flick in my face. But yeah, getting there. Right, so just to update you, I've got my light up here, so that's all good and working. Happy with that. And then in here, I've got the first set of LED strip in here. So I just put it in the center of this space all the way along, and I'm quite pleased with the result actually. It looks pretty good. It's a nice sort of warm glow just coming out between the beams, and there's no glare because it's sort of recessed up. So yeah, pretty happy with that. It went in really easily as well. The only thing is I've got to find somewhere up here to actually hide the gear, like the driver and everything, because the driver's quite big. So I've not fixed it back properly yet. I've just got to, because I'm waiting for a dimmable driver to come in. They didn't have any dimmable ones. So this is non-dimmable at the moment, but I need to swap it over for a dimmable one. I've got to do the same over here, but I'm just waiting for the boards to go down. They've started putting those in now, so hopefully in an hour or two those boards will be in, and then I can do this set of LED strip. And then I have got the data cable for the house. It's all the way over to the house now, about 120 meters over that way. So I've got to basically just finish rolling out, run it into the box here, up inside this compression gland. Customer's going to dig it in afterwards on that section. I've got to put a glass head on this end, drill it in at the house end, put a glass head on that end, and then connect it into the Wi-Fi router over there. The Dyson light, if I can get this door open. So the customer's put a oak plate up there now, so that the base of the Dyson light can be mounted on there. So the cable's just tucked up above, but I've got to have a special Lutron 0 to 10 volt dimming controller to go up there, and I didn't realise. So I've ordered that, but it's going to be in a few days time, so I'm going to have to come back to fit that light finally. But yeah, we're getting there anyway, nearly there. Right, so lighting inside these LED strips are complete. So we've got lovely bright LED strips along there, and the same along here. I'm very pleased with the result. Nice and bright, and it gives a really cool light effect. That's done. That light has to wait until next week because I'm waiting on the extra Lutron controllers, so we're going to have a part 5 to install this Dyson light. These Lutron controls are all working, which is really cool, so I can turn those off, and I can also do it with my phone. I can control each individual light with my phone, and I can dim them and all that. I've got a separate switch for the outside lights, so they're working on that switch, and I'm going to have a separate switch for that light up there as well, so they can control how much light up and down they want and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just packing up. Got my wheelbarrow because the van is a little bit far away from the building. Ready to go home.